Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children.
Hey guys, welcome back. Super excited to be here. My previous recording of what I was trying to communicate, absolutely despised it. Was not prepared. I even called myself out even before I knew what I was doing in that previous episode, which I think is very important. You need to stand on business. Call yourself out when you're wrong. You're not always going to be right. You know, that's a part of life. It's a part of growing up, is realizing that you're going to be wrong and you're going to be out of place. And you're not always going to fit in. And, you know, today I wanted to talk about, you know, being a role player in life, being a role player with your friends, your family, significant others, at work, at play, with enemies, with friends, you know. Being a role player in life, I think we all have moments of which to where we're, you know, taken with the challenge of being a role player. And I think the best people don't look at it as like a why me type of thing. You know, I think the right mindset is the why not us. You know, roles are important. Everybody has a role. When you have friend groups, you look at everybody. Everybody's got a different appendage in terms of skill that they have as an asset or something that they excel at, you know, and that's their role. That's their role in the group. That's their role in the friendship. You know, some guys might get all the girls, you know. Some guys might be talkers, might be motor mouths like myself. You know, some guys might be the stat guy, might know all the stats and numbers, might be able to run the books, you know, carries around an abacus, somebody like that. You know, who's got the rugrats, you know, the crazy guys. That's my stomach. I was just eating a bunch of caramel popcorn, so I apologize. But yeah, I think, you know, with my experience as a football guy, you know, you gotta find your role. You're not always gonna be top dog. You're not always gonna be Mr. Important. It's important as a person to know you have to detach yourself from your ego and kind of let go. You know, give yourself up to the bigger picture, to the bigger idea. It's so relieving when you can put it up to something bigger than yourself, and not rely on your will and your own self-esteem all the time. You know, you don't have to be a one-man army. I was just playing Call of Duty. Well, it's literally right in front of me. I was just playing it, and it inspired me to react and jump back on this instead of putting it off. You know, because what would these guys that I'm about to talk about do? What would Desmond Doss do? What would Anderson Carton de Huat do? You know, these are wartime veterans, wartime guys that are just smashed in the face of adversity and continue to you know, do it for others, put themselves aside and put the greater good in front of them. You know, there's so many things that these guys did to be great and to put others before themselves and be the role player that everybody strives to be. You know, being a role player is hard. You're not always going to get what you want. It's not always going to draw up how it is on the whiteboard. You know, it's going to change. It's going to bend. It's going to bind. Things will be different, but they'll be okay. You know, role players and teams with good role players, they end up being championship teams. You know, I look at a team like the Boston Celtics. Even though I despise them being a 76ers fan, I don't despise them. I love the Garden. I love the cross-hatched floors. It's classic. The black walls, the bright lights keeps you focused on the game. But anyway, you look at that team, and there's not one guy that excels or exceeds anybody else on that team. Maybe Jason Tatum. But other than that, all those guys are extremely good at what they do. They all play their role. They all play their part. And ultimately, look at them. They're a championship team. They might run the league for the next few years. I don't see anybody stopping them. But then you look at a team like the Lakers. And we all know who their main guy is. We all do. I don't know why I have those headphones on. But we all know who that main guy is on the Lakers. We all know who that star player is. And I can't sit here and tell you that I've seen too many role players roll through LA in the past few years. You know, you got some studs, you got some all-stars. But they're a struggling team. They're struggling to be consistent. If you're struggling with your friend group or you're struggling in life, look to be a role player. Don't look to be a star player all the time. We got star players everywhere. You know, and they're jumping team to team, trying to figure it out, but the whole time you got role players who've been in the league for years, consistently doing the damn thing. You know? And role players do have to be faced with a lot of adversity. Not that a star player isn't, but role players. Role players are the ones that do the little things in the dark when the big things come to light. And, you know, making this granular and putting the rubber to the road here. The first individual, Mr. Carton DeWart. You know, this guy, I should probably touch on, you know, how I got into shifts with these characters. I was just scraping on YouTube a few days ago. Well, not a few days ago, but just over time. And, you know, you watch different YouTube channels like the History Channel, and you look at, you know, frontiermen, the people that built the country and, you know, explored other parts of the world. And it's just so inspiring because these guys did it with leather on their back and a hoof on their boot and nothing but a wooden ship and a musket, and just trudged on. And now we're here. I'm sitting talking to an LED microphone. Those guys would be shitting themselves right now if they saw me doing this. They'd probably be pissed off, thinking, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I not shooting a deer? Why am I not rummaging a village of their sulfur, gunpowder, and wheat? Why am I not trying to find my sixth wife at this point? I'm 26. Should have 15 children. They should all be serving in the army or be teachers or be butchers. I don't even know if that timeline necessarily makes sense, because that's more of like a Civil War, Revolutionary wartime era. They've had fully metal jacketed bullets by this time and giant cargo ships and flying plane, whatever. It's not the point. That's what I should be doing right now, except I'm just telling about how good these guys are and how they will never be outmatched in the foreseen future. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, however hard you think life is, listen to these guys' stories and then tell me that you don't think you could be more of a role player, more than a star player, moving out here forward. So the first guy, Carson DeWart, he was a legendary British Army officer, and he served in numerous conflicts during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Here's a detailed timeline of this guy. And I can't say that, you know, I pulled this all together from a handwritten note with a feather-tipped pen, but the internet's helpful. So he served in the Second Boer War. That was in 1899 through 1902. He enlisted during that time in the British Army, and he initially was serving as a Second Imperial Light Horse. He was first deployed to South Africa during this Boer War. He sustained his first combat in being shot in the stomach and the groin. He recovered, marked the beginning. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read and share my own thoughts at the same time. So, this first injury was essentially a stepping stone for him, because he was known as a soldier that couldn't be killed. So this first enactment, this first time he was faced with adversity, this was the first time that he started to build this legendary escapade of being a resilient and incredible character. And not that he was the best soldier in the world. So he continued to go into World War I. This was 1914 to 18. He deployed to France. He ended up becoming... he served on the Western Front with the 4th Dragoon Guards and later transferred to the Royal Irish Fusiliers. Through 1915, he was deployed in Gallipoli, British forces. During the campaign, he was shot in the face, losing his left eye and part of his ear. So you think of a guy like that being faced with that much adversity. Getting shot in the fucking face and losing an eye and an ear. And then trucking on to the Western Front, which continued in 1916 and then 1918. He continued to serve in France, where he endured further injuries. Shot in the hand, he eventually led to the amputation of his hand, despite he refused a prosthetic, famously remarking, "All I need for war is a stump." Suffered additional wounds in the leg, head, and hip. This courage earned him the Victoria Cross in 1916 for leading attacks under heavy fire despite his injuries. So this guy is literally losing limbs in the heat of battle, but continues to trudge on these wars, regardless. And he's a guy, this is what baffled me, he's a British officer. And this just goes to show you what the hell Britain was on at the time. This dude went to South Africa, then he went to France, and then he went to that is in like 4 or 5 years. That's in like a 4 to 8 year time span. He fought in a war in Africa, then went to the Western Front of France. And then, the interwar years, from 1919 to 1939, this is nuts. He served as a part of the British military mission to Poland, assisting Polish forces in their struggle against the Soviet Red Army. Diplomatic roles, he remained in Poland for much of the 1920s and 30s, contributing to British-Polish relations while retaining his military commissions. So during this time, this man literally invaded so many countries. He just ended up just going to Poland for 30 years. And after these 30 years, this literally took him up into World War II. So this man enlisted into World War I, lost half of his upper body, and then continued to commission and lobby and be a damn near a politician in Poland. And then transfer himself and enlist him, just throw himself into World War II. This guy loved and was known for loving war. He loved war with a passion. This guy was an aggressor. He wanted it. He loved adversity. This guy thrived in adversity. So in World War II, which many may know is 1939 to 1945, this was his Norwegian campaign. So I can't really recall what side Norway was on during World War II. I'm assuming that was an American. Yeah, it was Britain, American. Yeah, so he's on our side. He was appointed to lead the British forces into Norway. The campaign was unsuccessful, but his leadership remained highly regarded. He was captured by the Axis forces in 1941 while en route to Yugoslavia. Wow, this stings. See, this is why it's all coming back to me, because if you're a religious individual, there's so many messages that are transferred in life, and I feel like sometimes we're sitting here asking ourselves where we can grasp understanding and where we can grasp worth, and it's tough because everybody wants to be worth the highest value, the most. Everybody wants to be the most important. That's why I wanted to continue to share and touch on, being a role player like these guys and just face fucking yourself with adversity, because ultimately you're just going to learn more about yourself going through shit versus trying to be the best around. No one's going to ever take us out. But okay, so while en route to Yugoslavia, Carton Duarte's plane crashed into the Mediterranean, leading his captures by Italian forces. Of fucking course, those damn Italians scooping up Mr. Duarte. He was a POW, because the Italian guys, they played on the Germany side during the World War II. They were with Hitler. They loved the Hitler. He was a prisoner of war despite being 61 and missing multiple body parts. He made several escape attempts before being released in 1943 as a part of his diplomatic negotiations. So you'd think he'd be done after that, right? No. His final service from 1943 to 45, he was sent to China as a Winston Churchill's personal representative to Chiang Kai-shek. He remained in Asia until the war's conclusion. So not only was this man unscathed, well, I can't say he got out unscathed. This guy was unkillable. He got out very scathed. He got out extremely scathed. But this guy just couldn't give it up. He was relentless. He was determined. And he wasn't out here, trying to be the best soldier. He was just trying to be there for his country. And he was resilient. He was unkillable. The soldier that couldn't be killed. Obviously then he retired. He wrote an autobiography. And he passed away in 1963, it just baffles me. You think about the guys, this is just one guy during that time. The men that we used to have, not that we don't have men nowadays, but the men that were created during this time, they literally sound like superheroes. They literally sound like a G.I. Joe character. Why people struggle to make movies and come up with new plots nowadays. Look at this guy. How the hell can you not come up with a good story about an individual like this who's been through so much adversity? And this is remarkable. I mean, they even describe it as one of the most crazy stories in modern military history, showcasing unyielding courage, dedication despite numerous injuries. And I can relate to that, dude. Anybody who's been through a lot of injuries in sports and stuff can relate to shit like that. You got Tin Man sometimes walking around on sport. That's what we used to call people who used to get injured all the fucking time because they're always braced up. You call them Tin Man when they come out. I'm going to start calling them DeWarts or Dewey Yarts, Cartons. Man, that's a guy. That's a guy. And there's another person I also wanted to touch on. I think this guy is a little bit of a softer approach to the role player aspect. I also was trying to be more chronological because then you kind of look at the shift in times between these two men, completely different individuals, but there's so many different takeaways you can grasp and grab from these men and these guys. Desmond Doss is the second individual. He was known as a conscientious objector and medic in the U.S. Army. He served during World War II and specifically in the Pacific Theater. His active duty was different than most. He was a medic, and he was known to be very religious. And he joined the Army in 1942, and despite his Seventh-day Adventist beliefs, which included a commitment to nonviolence and observing the Sabbath, his training period was marked by severe opposition from fellow soldiers and commanding officers to his refusal to carry a weapon or work on Saturdays, except in emergencies. So that's an interesting thing right there. You got a guy who's really standing on his beliefs, and he wants to insert himself and still be a participant, and it's not necessarily accepted by the mass. But this guy wants to still have a role, and he still wants to be important to others. So you think maybe he's not the type of guy to go out there and shoot somebody in the fucking head, or lose a hand, or get an eye patch, or be Winston Churchill's right-hand man. But this guy's got a purpose. This guy's got a motive. This guy's got morals. So he was deployed to the Pacific Theater. This was in the summer of 1944 and went through May of 1945. That's a whole year and some change damn near. And he was mainly engaged in Guam. He participated as a medic, saving numerous lives under fire, and he also served in the Battle of Layette in late October and December of 1944. He again demonstrated extraordinary bravery treating and evacuating wounded soldiers from the battlefield. So you see him, despite all these, views and some disdain from other soldiers, this guy's just trying to prove his worth. He's trying to show his value. He's trying to be the role player that he wants to be. He's not trying to be Mr. Important or Mr. Big Tough Guy. He just wants to be a part of the squad. He just wants to be a part of the team. He wants to be a role player. He wants to make the team better. He's not going to go out there and hit a corner three and do the flashy pass, but he'll set a screen and roll. He'll get a rebound. He'll hit the outlet pass. He'll hit you at half court. Good high five guy, glue guy. If anybody knows about the glue guy, I'm a guy that knows about the glue guy. I'm a glue guy. Not just because I'm a white wide receiver, whether it was the color of my skin or the content of my character. I think everybody can relate to being a glue guy in some aspect, in some way. I think that's really important. Doss was also in the Battle of Okinawa, Japan, which is interesting because my grandfather also served and was stationed in Okinawa for a short time during this. I believe he battled in the Battle of Korea, Korean War, I believe. So salute to him. Rest in peace. This was Doss's most famous campaign, during which he displayed extraordinary heroism. And like I said earlier, God speaks to you in a lot of different ways. And me specifically with this next point, playing at Marshall University and being so connected to the 75, which if you ever watched the Marshall movie, you'll understand why, because of the plane crash that took 75 players' lives. Numerology is something that, binds numbers and life and spirituality. And that's, I guess, my understanding of it. And when I was, stumbling upon like these two dudes and kind of, finding some purpose for myself in life, maybe in a way, and finding some inspiration through it, it's just interesting to see how stuff translates and stuff transcends you and becomes this bigger picture, and can be so fucking cool because you're like, oh man, it just takes a weight off you. You don't feel as tasked or, maybe as nervous per se, or, you don't feel like you have such a big plate. There's so much shit on your plate. Because you're working for something and you're sacrificing for something that's bigger than yourself. Like being the role player in your family, being the role player with the guys, being the role player in any aspect. But at Hacksaw Ridge, May 1945, Doss saved 75 wounded soldiers. And that's counted, 75 wounded soldiers. By lowering them down a steep cliff under relentless enemy fire. He worked tirelessly for hours, risking his life to save others without carrying a weapon. So this whole time, everybody's looking at this guy like, who the fuck are you? Why the fuck are you here? And he didn't let it faze him. He was there through all of the banter and the hate. Not that the hate was coming from a deep-rooted place or anything malicious, but it was just something that came with it. Everybody's pointed the finger and laughed at somebody, But this guy pushed through all of that and still sacrificed for those same dudes. It just goes to show you what being a role player can mean to others. It's a marvel. It's incredible. And what was ironic about this was that he ended up getting wounded. Sorry for the beeping. Damn monitor. He ended up getting wounded and discharged during this time as well, I think late in November 1945. He was severely injured in Okinawa. He was hit by shrapnel in the legs and later was shot in the elbow by a sniper, which is fucking, ow, damn. right in the elbow. Imagine that funny bone tickler. But yeah, dude, I fucking broke my elbow in college too. So I'm reading this story because I've read these notes, whether anybody believes me or not, prior to me talking about this, even though it sounds like I can't fucking read. But like, I'm looking at this one night, like literally getting goosebumps reading the story about this soldier. And not that like I'm like saying I'm fucking Desmond Doss, but like you look at something like that and you want to relate and have it resonate and you're looking for an answer per se. And then you read something like this and you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, this is crazy. Like, I literally broke my elbow my freshman year of college. And injuries damage you. And this resonates so much, and it's so cool to look at something that's so disconnected from you that can ultimately connect the dots. Shot at his arm, despite his injuries, treated himself and others before being evacuated. He was honorably discharged in November of 1945. And talk about numerology, more of it. November 1970 was when the plane crash occurred. 1945, those are both my college numbers. You know, it's just intense. It's just intense to look at. It's intense to read. Still getting some of those butterflies, that feeling. But, you know, I think after just reading those two stories about those guys, those timelines, I think, like, anybody can look at that and say whatever. But I think it's just really cool to try to be a role player and try to find strengths through being a role player in life. I think it carries a lot of worth to others, you know, dismantling your ego and trying to be syrup over a puzzle piece, fill in all the cracks, soak it all up like a big sponge, and just be the guy that people can count on. You know? Be that role player. Be that guy. I mean, look at this. Look at this picture. Desmond Doss saving these 75 people. Tell me that doesn't get you hype. If you're on the visual portion of this or you're even listening up to this point, I appreciate it. But look at this. Look at that guy Desmond up there. No weapon. Saving all these cats. Look at that fucking cliff. It's absolutely bizarre. It's absolutely nuts. It's absolutely crazy. But man, that's all I got, folks. I felt like I was a lot more direct and straight to the point with this one. And I appreciate everything and nothing, because nothing is everything and everything is nothing. Continue to be the role players that yourself and God made you to be. And keep being. Keep being a being. Love and peace.